The kindness that cost him everything was raining hard that evening. The kind of rain that turns sidewalks into rivers and soaks you to the bone no matter how fast you run. A McDonald's just off the highway was glowing like a tiny beacon. In the storm, inside the air smelled of fries and burnt coffee, and the floor tiles were slick from wet shoes tracking in water. It was late, nearly 11 p.m., and the lobby was mostly empty except for a few tired truckers nursing coffees and scrolling through their phones. Behind the counter stood a young man named Elijah. Elijah was 22, wore his name tag slightly crooked, and had a way of smiling even when his back ached from double shifts. He wasn't the type to complain. He had 2 younger siblings at home and a mom who worked nights at the hospital. He'd dropped out of community college to keep food on the table after his dad left. He worked the register, cleaned tables, sometimes fixed the soda machine with a butter knife when it clogged. He was the glue holding his family together, even if nobody saw it that way. That night, a man walked in wearing a plain hoodie, soaked from the storm, carrying a laptop bag slung over one shoulder. He looked tired, not dirty or desperate, just worn down. He didn't say much when he reached the counter. He asked for a small black coffee. Nothing else. Elijah rang him up, but when the man reached into his pocket, he frowned. His wallet was missing. He checked again. Front pocket, back. Pocket, jacket lining. Nothing. His eyes flicked up to Elijah's. "I must have dropped it," he said, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I'll just sit down and warm up for a minute." Elijah hesitated. Most of the time, a missing wallet meant someone trying to hustle a freebie. Management was strict. They had cameras. They watched everything. One wrong move could cost you your job. But something about this man seemed different. He didn't beg or plead. He looked embarrassed and tired. Very, very tired. So Elijah did what he wasn't supposed to do. He smiled gently, rang up a coffee and a small fries, and slid the tray across the counter. "On the house," he said. "Just don't tell my boss." The man looked at him, surprised. "Thank you," he said quietly, taking the tray with both hands like it was gold. "Really? Thank you?" I sat down in the corner booth. Didn't even take out his laptop. Just sipped the coffee slowly, as if trying to make it last. 15 minutes later, the district manager walked in. She was supposed to arrive earlier, but the rain had delayed her. Tall, sharp, and efficient, her eyes swept the store like a security scanner. She spotted the man in the corner. She saw the receipt sticking out of the trash with zeroed out totals. Her face tightened. "Elijah," she said. "Back office." "Now," he went. It didn't take long. She showed him the camera footage, asked him to explain. He tried, said the man had looked cold and lost, said he just wanted to help, said he paid for it himself. He hadn't, but he would have. She didn't care. Policy was policy. By the time his shift was over, Elijah no longer worked there. He stepped out into the storm without his uniform. It's just a plastic bag with his name tag and a folded final paycheck. It wasn't much, it never was. But it was all he had. Back inside, the man in the hoodie was gone. The next morning, Elijah woke up early. He had to, even without the job. Life didn't stop. He took his sister to school, made his mom tea before. She left for her shift. Didn't tell her what had happened. Didn't want her to worry. Then he sat at the kitchen table and stared at his phone, trying to think of what to do next. 3 missed calls. All from unknown numbers. He ignored them. But then, a text came through. "We need to talk. Please call me back." Pichai stared at the message. The name didn't click right away. Too much noise in his brain. He read it again. Slowly, that's Pichai's. Heart skipped. No, it couldn't be. There was no way. He searched the name. There it was. Sundar Pichai. The CEO of Google. His hands began to shake. He picked up the phone. The voice on the other end was calm, familiar. "Hi, Elijah. It's Sundar. You gave me coffee and fries last night. A lot more than that, I think." Elijah couldn't speak. At first, he just nodded, even though Sundar couldn't see him. "I want to meet again," Sundar said. "Today, if you can." They met at a local diner. Sundar was already there when Elijah arrived. He wasn't in a suit, just a simple sweater and jeans. No security, no cameras, just him. "Why?" Elijah asked. Why would you want to meet me? Sundar smiled, the kind of smile that's half tired, half grateful. Because people don't see each other anymore, he said. They look, but they don't see. And last night you saw me. Not for who I am, but for who I felt like in that moment. Just a guy, cold, tired, maybe a little lost. He leaned forward, eyes steady. You reminded me what it feels like to be treated with kindness when you least expect it. Elijah didn't know what to say, so Sundar continued. I want to offer you something. It's not a handout. It's a start. He pulled out an envelope. Inside was a plane ticket. To Mountain View, California. I want to show you something, Sundar said. An opportunity. Not just a job. A path. Elijah was still stunned. He wasn't sure if this was real. He wasn't sure if he deserved it. He'd just given a man some free food. But Sundar was already standing. Pack light, he said. We leave in the morning. That night, Elijah lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. His sister was asleep on the bunk above. His mom's alarm would go off in 3 hours. He should have felt excited. But instead, he felt nervous. Scared. What if this was a mistake? What if he got there and failed? What if the world outside his tiny town chewed him up and spit him back out? And then he remembered something his mom always said when things felt too big. Don't ask why the door opened, just walk through it. Your job isn't to understand it. Your job is to be ready. He closed his eyes. He would be ready. But just before dawn, something happened that changed everything. A knock at the door. Urgent. Heavy, his mom answered it. Confused. 2 police officers stood there. We're looking for Elijah, one said. We need to talk to him. Elijah came to the door, heart thudding. It's about last night, the officer said. We believe the man you served might not have been who he said he was. Elijah blinked, but ... he was Sundar Pichai. The officers looked at each other. Maybe, the second one said. Or maybe someone who wanted you to think that. And just like that, the ground beneath Elijah's feet began to crack. The man behind the curtain lodge sat on the couch, barefoot and confused, while the 2 officers stood just inside the door like statues in dark blue. Outside, the sky was still gray with the early morning haze, and the world was quiet except for the distant rumble of a garbage truck. The officer on the left, the taller one, with a small scar by his temple, repeated the question slowly, as if Elijah were hard of hearing. Did he give you anything other than that envelope? Elijah blinked, his mind swimming. No, he said, just the ticket. He said he was Sundar Pichai. The shorter officer gave a small exhale through his nose. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. People say all sorts of things, he muttered. His mom hovered near the kitchen, her robe tied tight around her, eyes darting between Elijah and the officers. Is my son in trouble? She asked. He didn't do anything wrong. Officers exchanged a glance, and the taller one stepped forward just a little, his voice lower now. No, ma'am. Your son helped someone. It's not the issue. The issue is that we've had reports conflicting. Once about a man who's been posing as important figures, celebrities, businessmen, and he's been targeting good Samaritans, people who are kind, people like your son. Elijah's mouth went dry. The officer reached into his pocket and pulled out a photo printed on cheap paper, already starting to curl at the edges. It was a still from a security camera, grainy, black and white. It showed the man from the restaurant, the same hoodie, the same tired eyes. Underneath the photo was a name, but it wasn't Sundar Pichai. It was something else entirely. We've seen him in 5 states, the officer said. Sometimes he says he's a Google executive. Sometimes he says he's from a nonprofit. Last time he told someone he was scouting talent for a documentary. The other officer cut in. We don't think he's dangerous, but we don't know what he wants, and people tend to trust him too much. Elijah sat back, his thoughts racing. It didn't make sense. He remembered the man's voice. Calm way he spoke. The weight behind his words. The tired sincerity in his eyes. If he was pretending, it was the most convincing lie Elijah had ever seen. He gave me a ticket, Elijah said quietly. Real one. Flight to California. Departs today. The officers looked surprised. The taller one scratched his head. Can we see it? Elijah nodded, walked to the bedroom, and returned with the envelope. The officers examined it like it might be hiding something more than travel plans. After a moment, the shorter one shrugged. Looks legit, he said. But it doesn't prove who he is. The conversation ended with a warning. The officers told him to be cautious, to let someone know where he was going, and to call if anything felt off. And then they left, their boots echoing on the hallway floor. Elijah stood at the window for a long time after that, watching their cruiser disappear around the corner. By the time he finally sat down again, his mom was pacing. "You're not going," she said. "It's not after that. It's too risky," but Elijah wasn't so sure. His gut was tangled in knots, but somewhere, deep in that tangle was something else. Curiosity, maybe even hope. "What if he really is Sundar Pichai?" he asked. "What if I'm walking away from the one good thing that's ever happened to me?" His mom stopped pacing. "And what if you're walking into something dangerous?" Elijah didn't have an answer. All he knew was that life hadn't offered him many chances. And now, maybe for the first time, it had handed him a strange, imperfect door. He could walk through it, or stay home and wonder forever what might have been on the other side. The airport was colder than usual. Elijah sat at the gate with a backpack on his lap and his phone clenched in one hand. He checked the time again and again. His flight was boarding in 15 minutes. People bustled past him with roller bags and headphones and lattes, lost in their own stories. And then, just as he was about to stand, a voice spoke beside him. "You came." Elijah turned. There he was, the same man from the restaurant. Only now he looked different, clean-shaven, better rested. And this time he was wearing a badge on a lanyard. Google, plain as day. Elijah blinked. "They said you weren't." "You said you were." The man smiled faintly. "Sometimes people can be more than one thing. I am who I said. But I didn't tell you everything. Not yet." Elijah didn't speak, just looked at the badge. It could be fake, but it looked real, and something in the man's eyes. It hadn't changed. "Why the games?" Elijah asked. "Why pretend to be broke? Why test me?" "Because," the man said softly, "I've been where you are. When I first came to this country, I walked into a diner and couldn't pay for my food. Someone helped me. A stranger. I never forgot that. And now when I meet someone with that same kind of heart, I want to give them a chance. But I need to know it's real, that they're not helping for a reward, that they're helping because that's who they are." Elijah sat back. His head was spinning. "Come with me," the man said. "I'll tell you everything on the way. But you should know this. Whether you believe in me or not, you've already passed the test." The flight began boarding. Elijah stood. They walked toward the gate together, one step at a time. The plane touched down in California just before sunset. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and gold, and the mountains looked like sleeping giants in the distance. Sundar, the man claiming to be him, led Elijah through the terminal with calm confidence, as if he'd done this walk 100 times, but something still didn't feel right. Too much silence, too many unanswered questions. A black car picked them up at the curb. The driver said nothing, just nodded as they got in. Inside the car, Sundar pulled out a small tablet and handed it to Elijah. "Watch this," he said. It was a short video, less than 5 minutes. We showed Sundar, the real Sundar, the stage, giving a speech, and then it cut to him at a school, a homeless shelter, a tech camp in India. It was a montage of moments, not about money, about impact, about people. And then the screen faded to black, and a single line of text appeared. "One moment of kindness can rewrite a life." Elijah handed the tablet back. "I'm sure what to say. I've watched that video 100 times, Sundar said. Every time I remember why I do this, why I keep my eyes open. Yeah. And this time, I saw you." They rode the rest of the way in silence. But when they pulled up to the Google campus, Elijah's breath caught in his throat. It was like another world. Buildings, with walls of glass and clean lines, trees everywhere, people on bikes, laughing, working, living, and in the center of it all, a place that didn't just look like a company, but something bigger. "This is where we start," Sundar said, "but not where it ends." Elijah followed him through the doors, still not sure if this was a dream or something more. And just as he began to think he might finally have answers, a man stepped out from the elevator, wearing the exact same hoodie Sundar had worn at the McDonald's. But it wasn't Sundar, it was someone else. Entirely, Elijah froze. So did Sundar. "What is he doing here?" Sundar whispered. The other man just smiled. "I told you," he said, "but you're not the only one watching people." The watcher's silence in the lobby was unlike anything Elijah had ever felt before. It's not the absence of noise, but the presence of something heavy, something charged. The air felt thick. Sundar's face was pale, his usual calm cracked by the sight of the man in the hoodie, the same build, but with sharper eyes and a smirk that didn't belong to a CEO. Elijah looked between them, trying to make sense of it. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Who is that?" The man stepped forward, hands casually tucked into the hoodie's front pocket like he wasn't standing inside the headquarters of one of the biggest tech companies in the world. "I'm the reason he found you," he said, nodding at Sundar. "But I'm not here to shake hands." Sundar's voice came low and firm. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," the man replied. Elijah's head swam. This was beyond anything he'd imagined. One moment he was handing fries across a counter, and now he was caught in some kind of high-stakes, secret world that had nothing to do with fast food and everything to do with what? Power? Identity? Truth? The man finally turned to Elijah. "You did something kind," he said. "But you didn't just give away fries. You stepped into something bigger. People like OS people who watch we look for kindness. It's not the performative kind. The real thing. The kind that shows up in the dark, without anyone watching." He tilted his head. "Ironically, there are always people watching." Elijah took a step back, eyes flicking to Sundar. "So, who is he?" Sundar inhaled slowly. "We worked together once. He was brilliant. Too brilliant, maybe. We built systems to study human behavior, to learn from people, to see patterns in compassion, curiosity, empathy. But then, we wanted to take it further. Too far. He believed in provoking change through manipulation, testing people without their consent, creating scenarios that forced kindness. I didn't agree." Fish chuckled. "Now you do the same thing, just with better lighting and a press team?" Sundar ignored the jab. "Elijah, you were never part of his plan. Saw your act of kindness with my own eyes. That moment was real." Vish walked slowly across the floor, his sneakers squeaking faintly. "Real, yes. But what happens after the moment, Sundar? What happens when the kind ones are dragged into our little theater? You've turned kindness into currency." Elijah felt like he was watching a conversation between titans who'd once built a mountain together, and were now standing on opposite cliffs, tearing it apart stone by stone. "Why me?" Elijah asked. His voice sounded small, even to himself. "Why pull me into this?" Sundar looked at him. His expression softened, the weight of everything behind his eyes. "Because you remind me of who I was, maybe who I forgot to be." But Vish had already stepped closer. "Or maybe because he needs a symbol," he said. "Working class. Kid with a good heart. Makes a great headline. And you believed it, didn't you? You believed you were chosen. But ask yourself this. How many others has he chosen?" Elijah's stomach twisted. He didn't know what to think anymore. He'd wanted a job. A fresh start. Not, "I just gave someone food," he muttered. "And now you're the axis of something much bigger," Vish said. "Because you saw someone, and you acted." And that ripples are funny things. They don't always go where we expect. The moment stretched between them like a wire ready to snap. And then, just as the tension reached its breaking point, a voice crackled through the speakers above. "Security to Lobby 3. Security to Lobby 3. Sundar straightened. "We can't talk here. Come with me." But Vish stepped in the way. "No," he said. "He needs to decide for himself. Come with you or with me? Elijah stared at them both. One hand on the past, one hand on the unknown. Two men who saw the world through different lenses, both brilliant, both flawed, both impossibly real. He thought of his mom, his siblings, the long nights behind the counter, the tired man who asked for coffee, and the way it had felt just for a second. To give without expecting anything back, that he realized was the only thing that felt true. So he turned not to Sundar, not to Vish, but toward the hallway behind them. I don't want to be part of your war, he said. I just want to be part of something honest. And then he walked past them both, but neither followed, because they both knew his choice was the most powerful thing in the room. Elijah didn't run, but he moved with purpose. The hallway curved around into a quieter wing of the building, away from the glass-walled offices and into an area that looked more lived in. Softer lighting, fewer people. A sign above the door read Innovation Lab B in lowercase, faded letters dot inside. A woman was working alone, typing furiously on a laptop. She looked up as he entered, surprised but not alarmed. Can I help you? Elijah hesitated. I'm not sure. I think I just walked out of something I didn't understand. Woman closed her laptop and gave a small nod. Sounds like you met the Watchers. Is that what they call themselves? Not officially, but it fits. He looked around the room. Whiteboards covered in notes, timelines, sketches, quotes, everything about the space screamed thinking. Happens here. What is this place? He asked. The woman stood. This is where the real work begins, she said. Not the spotlight, not the experiments. This is where we ask what happens after the moment of kindness. Can it be nurtured? Multiplied? Protected? Elijah blinked. Wait. You knew they were going to test me? No, she said gently. But I've seen it before. They find the sparks. Some try to claim them, others try to control them. But the spark itself, that belongs to you. He sat down slowly in the nearest chair. I don't know who to trust. She shrugged. Maybe that's the point.
Ow.
Maybe trust isn't about choosing who's right. Maybe it's about choosing who you want to become. Elijah stared at his hands. They still smelled faintly like French fries. Then the woman added something quietly, almost an afterthought. There's one more person who wants to meet you. He looked up. Who? She gave him a soft, knowing smile. Someone who was helped by Sundar, back when he was nobody. And before Elijah could ask anything more, the door opened, and in walked a woman with eyes just like his sister's and a voice like gravel, wrapped in honey. And she said one word, Elijah. Roots of the Elijah stood up without realizing he had. The woman in the doorway wasn't tall, wasn't dressed like someone important, and didn't wear a badge or a suit. She looked like someone you'd pass on the street without a second. Glance-faded sweater, silver-streaked hair, pulled into a loose bun, canvas bag slung over one shoulder. But her presence filled the room in a quiet, undeniable way. It's like gravity, not lightning. It's like something older than either Sundar or Vish. You don't know me, she said gently. But you should. Elijah glanced at the woman who had brought him into the lab. She nodded once, encouraging. So he sat back down. The woman took the seat across from him and set her bag carefully on the table, like it held something fragile. Then she folded her hands and waited. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough and warm, like a campfire that had survived the rain. When Sundar was 23, he worked nights cleaning office buildings. No job title, no resume, just gloves, bleach, and a little radio clipped to his belt to keep him company. That's how I met him. It's not in Silicon Valley, in Illinois. He used to mop the floor outside my night class. I taught coding to women getting back on their feet. Most of them didn't finish. Most were too tired, too beaten down. But Sundar, ... He stayed late, not to mop, but to listen. Elijah leaned forward. It felt like story time, but with consequences. One night, I came out to find him trying to solve a problem from the lesson. No computer, just pencil and paper. He had copied it down from the whiteboard while cleaning. She paused, eyes crinkling. He got it right. It's better than most of my students. So I started leaving him problems. Harder ones. I didn't tell anyone. Not the school, not the staff. Just me and him. Every night he'd mop and solve. Mop and solve. 6 months later, he had a full scholarship. Elijah sat back, stunned. The story sounded impossible, but the way she told it, no theatrics, no big emotions, made it feel truer than anything he'd heard so far. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because I see the same eyes in you. Not just hunger, humility, the quiet kind. And people with eyes like that. ... They're easy to miss, easy to use." She picked up her bag and opened it slowly. Inside was a folder. She slid it. Across the table, Sundar is trying to fix things. Vish is trying to control things. But both of them forgot what the beginning looks like. This folder isn't a job offer. It's a map. The kind that doesn't lead to gold, but to places where you can plant something real. Elijah opened the folder. Inside were photographs, handwritten notes, names, places. Shelters, food banks, small coding programs in rundown buildings. Nothing glossy. No websites. Just grit. All of it tied together by one thread axe of kindness that had spiraled into something lasting. Something seen only by those willing to look. "These are people," the woman said, "who were caught by the ripple. Just like you." He looked up. "Are you asking me to become ... what? A mentor?" "No," she said, standing. "I'm asking you to stay who you are. That's rarer than genius." She reached the door. She turned back. "And one more thing. Sundar didn't give you that folder. Neither did Vishai did. Which means the next move doesn't belong to them." And then she was gone. Like a gust of meaning that left the room changed behind her. Elijah sat with the folder open, fingers trailing over the edges of the photos. His mind kept flipping back through the past week like a broken reel McDonald's. The rain, the coffee, the voice on the phone, the flight, the confrontation, the choice, and now this. Breadcrumbs left, not for power, not for show, but for planting something that mattered. The woman from before returned, holding 2 cups of something steaming. She set one in front of him and didn't speak. Just let him sit with it. Sometimes silence is the best kind of conversation. After a few minutes, he asked, "Was any of this about a job?" She smiled a little. "A job is what you do. This is about who you are." He sipped the tea. It tasted like cinnamon and something ancient. "What if I don't want to be in the middle of their fight?" he asked. "You're not," she said. "You're in the middle of your own beginning. They just happened to show up in chapter 1. He closed the folder. His heart felt heavier now, but in a grounded way, like it had roots. Later that night, Elijah walked alone along the edge of the campus. The buildings glowed softly, but beyond them, the stars were just starting to blink through the dark. He stopped near a bench and sat down, watching the wind rustle the trees. And then, like the world wasn't finished yet, Vish appeared again. Not looming this time, not smug, just ... tired. "I was like you once," Vish said, sitting down beside him. Hopeful, honest. "You know what crushed that?" Elijah waited. "A system that said it cared about people, but only rewarded numbers. I started watching people like you to prove that kindness couldn't survive contact with ambition." "And did you?" Elijah asked. "I thought I did, until last week." Vish smiled faintly. "You ruined my thesis." Elijah laughed softly, almost against his will. "Don't trust Sundar too much," Vish said. "He wants to believe he's pure, but purity doesn't scale." "And you?" Elijah asked. "I don't want to be followed," Vish replied. "I just want the truth to be uncomfortable, because maybe that's what keeps it alive." He stood and walked into the night. The next morning, Elijah got a message. A simple one. It was from Sundar. "Thank you for seeing me, even when I wasn't sure who I was." He didn't ask for anything, didn't invite him back, just ... thanked him. 3 weeks later, Elijah was back home. Not because he gave up, but because he knew now where he could actually begin. He didn't return to McDonald's. Instead, he found an old rec center in need of repair. He reached out to the woman from the lab. Together, they set up a small corner with 5 donated laptops and folding chairs. He called it the Ripple Lab Kids. Showed up after school? Not many at first, but enough. And every time someone asked what the place was for, Elijah would smile and say, "This is where kindness learns to code." And somehow, that answer was enough. But one day, as he was locking up, he noticed an envelope taped to the door. No name, no return address. Inside was a photo. It was a still frame of him handing fries to Sundar that rainy night. On the back end, simple handwriting, were 4 words. "We're still watching, Elijah." The echo chamber Elijah held the photo in his hands for a long time. The fries, the counter, the look on his own face, that uncertain kindness frozen in time. He ran his thumb over the handwriting on the back like he could smooth it into meaning. "We're still watching, Elijah." Not signed. It's not threatening. Just ... present. Like a whisper left in the doorway of his life. He thought of Vish, of Sundar, of the woman in the lab. Thought of eyes behind glass, tests hidden in kindness, and the unsettling possibility that nothing was ever just a moment. The Ripple Lab had been open for barely a month. It didn't look like much. It's paint peeling in corners, a folding table that wobbled if you breathed too hard. One stubborn laptop that refused to connect to Wi-Fi without being verbally encouraged. But it was his. It was theirs. And it was growing. Kids came every afternoon now. Brought their cousins, their neighbors, even a grandma who didn't speak much English, but wanted to know how the Google worked. And Elijah, somehow, had become the person they came to with questions. Not just about coding, about life, about fear, about how to build something from scratch, Yvonne, when the world handed you cardboard instead of blueprints. But that photo, it scratched at something deeper. It meant someone still had their eye on him, not in a way that felt dangerous, in a way that felt complicated, layered. He remembered what the woman in the lab had said. Your next move doesn't belong to them. And yet here they were, watching. A week later, he found another envelope. This time it wasn't a photo. It was a key. No note, no explanation. Just a long silver key on a red string and a small map sketched on a napkin. The address was barely legible, an industrial district across the city, far from anything useful. Curiosity gnawed at him like it had teeth. But instinct wrapped around his ribs like a seatbelt tight. Warning, familiar. He debated ignoring it, but then again, ignoring things was never how stories like this moved forward. He waited until Saturday morning. No kids at the lab, no eyes on him as far as he could tell. He took the train, carried the key in his jacket pocket, like a charm he didn't believe in yet. The train squealed to a stop near a cluster of old warehouses. The kind of place where sound gets swallowed. No graffiti, no birds. It's just concrete and sky. The address led him to a green metal door with peeling paint and a number half rusted off. He looked around. Nothing. No cameras. No cars. No people. He fit the key into the lock, unsure whether to expect treasure or disappointment. It clicked. The door opened into a hallway lined with dust and humming light. At the end, a single door with frosted glass and a word stenciled across it in faint. Faded letters, Echo. He stepped inside. The room wasn't large. It was round, surprisingly so, with walls that curved like an observatory. In the center sat a table. On the table screens, dozens of them, not showing security footage, not charts, not maps, stories. Each screen showed a person, celebrities. Not executives, people. A man helping his elderly neighbor carry groceries. A teenager teaching his younger brother to read. A woman handing a coat to someone sleeping on a bench. And in the corner of every screen, a tiny symbol, a ripple. He turned slowly in place, taking it all in. The room wasn't surveilling. Was archiving. Moments of kindness. Moments that no one would post or tag or hashtag. Things that would have vanished into the blur of life. Something hadn't been paying attention. A voice came through a speaker. Not loud. Not dramatic, just there. This is the echo chamber, it said. Don't create kindness. We notice it. We protect it. Elijah swallowed. Who's we? The voice paused. People who once stopped to help someone they didn't. No. People like you. He stepped closer to the table. One of the screens flickered, then zoomed in on a scene that made his chest tighten. It was him at age 10, helping his sister tie her shoes before school. He remembered that morning. Their father had already left. Their mom was running late. It was a moment so small, he'd forgotten it existed. How do you have that? He asked, voice shaking. We don't collect video, the voice said. We collect echoes. Memories that leave an imprint. This is insane, Elijah said. So is hope, the voice replied. A drawer slid open in the table, mechanical and smooth. Inside was a small black device, no bigger than a matchbox. Next to it, a folded card. Elijah picked it up. One sentence plant. This where kindness struggles to grow. He stared at the device. It had no buttons, no screen, no logo. He couldn't even tell if it was on. What does it do? He asked. The voice didn't answer. What is this for? Still nothing? He looked around again. The screens were changing now. It's not just acts of kindness, but places where the opposite lived. Rage, loneliness, pain, not to shame them. Just to show where the balance tilted too far, he left the room without a word. The device tucked into his jacket. Back at the Ripple Lab, he sat alone long after the last kid left. The matchbox sat on the desk beside the printer, untouched, unexplained. It didn't buzz or glow or sing, just waited. It's like it was patient. It's like it didn't need to prove itself. He didn't tell anyone about the echo chamber, didn't tell Sundar, didn't even try to figure out who'd built it. Some truths are heavier than understanding. They just asked to be carried. Days passed, then weeks, and one afternoon. As he was locking up, he saw a boy outside the building sitting on the curb, legs pulled up to his chest. The boy looked no older than 10, eyes distant, clothes dusty. Elijah knelt down beside him. You okay? The boy didn't answer at first. Then he said, my brother was supposed to pick me up. He forgot. Where's home? The boy shrugged. Far. Elijah sat beside him.
No rush.
No pressure? After a while, the boy asked, do you believe people can just forget on purpose? Elijah thought for a long time. Then he said, sometimes. But sometimes people forget because they're trying too hard to remember everything else. Boy nodded slowly. Elijah handed him a juice from the fridge inside, called someone, waited until the boy's brother came late, overwhelmed, grateful. No drama, no thank you speeches, just a small moment. When they were gone, Elijah walked back inside and placed the matchbox under the desk. Nothing happened, but that night found a note slipped into the Ripple Labs mailbox. Echo received. The final ripplements passed like pages being quietly turned in a book no one realized they were reading. The Ripple Lab grew, not in size, but in soul. It didn't need billboards or a grand opening. It spread the old-fashioned way by word, of mouth, by stories whispered over kitchen tables, by someone telling someone else, there's a place that sees you, even if the world doesn't. Every week, new faces came through its door, some bright-eyed, some bruised by silence. All of them looking for something. And somehow, Elijah had become not just the guy who opened the building, but the one who opened hearts. There were no big speeches, no app launches, no viral videos, just moments, hundreds of them, quiet, personal, unsponsored, like the girl who built her first web page to honor her late grandmother, like the boy who taught his dad how to use email, like the shy teen who found her voice explaining Python code to a room that finally listened. And in the middle of it all was Elijah, never calling himself a leader, never asking to be followed, just kept showing up. But ripples, like all forces, eventually circled back to where they began. One crisp November morning, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a text, actual letter handwritten in blue ink, on thick paper. No logo, no heading, just this. You've passed every test we didn't mean to give you. Meet us one last time. Same room, same door. Bring nothing but what you've learned. Signed. Simply, Echo Elia didn't rush to respond. Not because he wasn't curious, but because he knew now that not every knock required an answer. Still, the part of him that had always looked up, pat stars at futures, at whatever came next, knew he would go. It's not to be chosen, not to prove anything, just to understand. The building hadn't changed. Still gray, still quiet, still standing, as if it had never been found on purpose. The same door, the same click of the key, the same room round, softly humming, filled with screens. Only this time, every screen showed him not the best version, not the cleanest. Him, helping, failing, pausing, trying again, laughing with kids, crying alone once in the storage room when he thought no one would show up. All of it, unedited. And then the screens went dark, and a door opened behind him that had never been there before. He stepped through. The next room was a garden. Not artificial. Real, green, alive, somehow blooming inside concrete walls. Beds with vegetables, ivy curling along trellises, small stream running along the edge, singing a soft tune only water knows. There were chairs and people. Not many. A dozen, maybe. All different. Old, young, different races, different clothes. But all looking at him with the calm of those who'd already walked the fire and come out kinder. Sundar sat among them, so did the woman from the lab and others. Nameless, maybe faceless to the world, but not to each other. You made it, Sundar said softly. I didn't come for reward, Elijah said. Good, said Vish. There isn't one. A few quiet chuckles followed. The woman stood and walked over to him, handed him a small seed in a glass vial. This is how it ends, she said, and how it begins. What is it? Elijah asked. Whatever you decide to plant. He looked at the others. Is this some kind of graduation? Not really, someone replied. It's more like a beginning without applause. He turned the vial in his hand. The seed inside was tiny, ordinary, but somehow it felt heavier than it looked. You said you don't create kindness, Elijah said. You just notice it. That's true, said Sundar. But sometimes we help it grow. Vish leaned back, fingers laced. And sometimes we learn that the people we thought were experiments were teachers. Elijah didn't say anything for a long time. He simply walked to the edge of the garden, knelt by the soil, and pressed the seed gently into the earth. He covered it with care, not like he was burying it, but like he was introducing it to the world. The moment was silent, but not empty. It was enough. Years later, no one remembered the headlines. The clickbait story about a McDonald's employee and a billionaire, it faded, as stories do. But the Ripple Lab remained, and others popped up, quietly, with different names, in different places. Little echoes in the world, places where kindness was taught not as a lesson, but as a language. And sometimes, if you visited one of those labs, you'd find a framed photo on the wall, a blurry image of a young man behind a counter, sliding fries to a stranger. No title, no caption, just a reminder. One quiet moment can feed 1,000 others, and if you looked closely, in the bottom right corner you might notice a tiny symbol. Ripple, still spreading, still watching, still growing. The end.